G'day mates, it's Donnie from Donnie's Garage and Adventures. So I thought we'd revisit the pixel mounting tips that we did a few years ago, just because a few things have changed, obviously, 2024 light show. So I'll run you through a couple of those different things now. Don't think I actually showed this last year, but this is the controllers. So they're just wall mounted, and the cables can then run from in here out under the garage door into the yard. So the controller boxes, we're just running Pixlite Mark II 16 controllers. It's got the 350 watt power supply up there, controller down the bottom, the glands down the bottom as well to keep everything a bit more sealed, but indoors we don't have to worry about it as much. So they pretty much stay there all year. And then I've got the Ethernet cable runs up here, same as the other one, up over the garage doors, and then over to the other side, we've got another set of these boxes and a TP-Link switch up the top, then a bunch of power boards obviously to power everything. These are actually individual well not PowerPoints, but individual circuits. So these actually run independent from the house just in case something happens. And if we just juck over here, we've now got the Raspberry Pi, some audio equipment, FM transmitter that's just bolted up there, and the antenna all the way up there as well. Also the amplifier just for the speakers that are out the front. So this is kind of everything that we've got indoors to run the show. Obviously this is kind of important because it runs so much. In particular the garage door matrices, which I'll run through in a little bit more detail shortly. Alright, so for the garage door matrices we have these Hanson Power 8s. Basically what these do is you can get your input power from your power supply, run it into the Power 8, and then if you look on the other side, you've actually got the ability to split it out in terms of your positive and your negative. And you've also got on these as well, so you'll see here you've also got positive data out and 0 voltage. So this side is your positive data in and 0 voltage. This basically just lets you use, like you've probably heard of null pixels before. So when Alan Hanson makes these, he does it as electronics called a null buffer. Now, the difference between the null pixel and the null buffer is the null buffer you don't have to program. So you just literally just bang your wires into here off your pixel controller, wires out the other side, it'll do the repeating in that circuit. Don't have to program anything in your controller, it just works. So that's quite a good thing there. All right, we've just moved to the outside of the house and I'll just run you through a few things that we've got going on out here that are a little bit different to the last video that we did, just so you can see some things that we changed to make things a little bit easier. All right, these strips. So if you recall from the previous video, these strips actually used to be plasterers style strips, so the ones that have the holes in it. Now we've just moved to PVC, it's a lot cheaper, and then we're using these little double-sided tape LED strip clips that you can just get off Amazon. And then on the back side of them, let me see where one is, just got a magnet. So you can actually, the reason why we've done it like this, I can then pull that off, fully off the house when I want to chuck it back on. Probably saw it snap in then. That's now snapped back in. And so you've got a good outline on the house. So that's what we've done this year instead of having the plasterer style strip with the brick clips. So all I've got is a magnet that's on the back of here with double-sided tape on the back of it. And then obviously on the inside of the strip, you've got another magnet, and then it just snaps into place. I've only had one that's come off in a very high wind situation, but to put it back on, all it was just to chuck it back on again and let the magnets do their work. So that's something that's changed for this year. Right, moving along, if we now look along the LED strips that are on the gutter, and then all the way up around, and then up over the roof peaks and everything, still just using those same little LED clips that have just got the ability to just push the LED strip into. So in the past, you can actually see we've got double-sided tape that used to be there, but it was annoying every year to try and get it on and off and took a lot of time. Now it does help to have a little bit of tape behind it still, so a little bit of that double-sided tape behind the actual LED strip clips, but it's a lot easier to sort of put things up and down. And we've actually had some of those clips up there for 2 seasons now, and in the sun they didn't actually get brittle or anything like that, which was really nice. Moving along, the window matrices, nothing's really changed. So all these is along the back, there's a PVC piece that we've just cable tied around, or in this case, when it's a bit longer and a bit heavier, we've got a long basically a broomstick with a bit of PVC on the end of it to sort of make up the length. And then we just cable tie through the clips that you can see at the top there. And in terms of adjusting the height, then you can just tighten up the cable ties or cut them if you need to recut them. Or you can even, you'll see on here, we've actually got the steel wire. You can also adjust the height by loosening that off as well. I generally find it's easy to do it with the cable ties though. Trying to play around with the steel cable stuff is a little bit annoying to try and hold the weight unless you've got two people. Still in the matrix style, let's have a look at these. So these are our yard matrices. Now for these, what we've actually got is temporary fencing that just sits in these concrete blocks. So if you recall the previous video, we built it all out of timber, which obviously season by season is kind of annoying because you've got to rebuild it and check it all the time. These are a lot thinner than those builds because we can take them out of the concrete and then stack them up. And then the way that we've done this, if you actually look up the top, is we've got basically a turnbuckle that runs all the way through with some rigging wire to the other side. And then we've looped it around, gone through, and we can actually still, over the years, if it actually does start to, you know, disintegrate or whatever, or get a little bit looser, we can just use the turnbuckle on this side to sort of tighten the wire up. And then if we go down further, you can see it's pretty much just being supported by that. So this type of mesh is obviously quite good. It doesn't really matter the weight that's sort of being suspended there. The cable ties along the top are doing the job. You could suspend it around the side as well, but we found that just the cable ties along the top are easy. And then for storage, it's good because you can then just stack them. Now for our sander hat, just to be easy, we've done the same thing, just cable tied to a bit of temporary fence. Just makes it a lot easier to sort of pack things down. You don't have to build anything to sort of keep it keep it elevated. You can just get these panels. The panels obviously last a long time. The concrete lasts a long time. We've just painted them black. You can see the orange shining through on ones that have been, had a little bit of paint chipped off them. And the other good thing is you can see, so again, same controller as what we've got on the inside, but this one runs all the outside stuff, and you can then just cable tie it onto the side of the temporary fence. So it's a good spot to be able to mount it. Just thought I should run through these little boxes as well. When we open these up, we've basically got those same Hanson power rates running up to all the matrices. So these are just basically a waterproof box. They've actually got 600 watt power supplies in them. Not that we use the full 600 watts, but it was just better, having more available is good to be able to run a lot of power stuff. These still have that same null buffer system if you want to use it. We don't use it here, we do use it for the Megatree. All right, going along this section here, this is the only spot that we're still kind of using brick clips. Again, just using I guess you'd call them the same sort of C-clip that you use on a dog's lead. Basically, we just bent that out a little bit so you can see at the top, so it's sitting there, and then cable tying it and letting the suspense of the cable tie hang down off the wall. This way, it's kind of a little bit easy if you ever need to get it down, because obviously just go up here, unclip it up the other side. So if you have a pixel failure, if you have something you need to fix up, it's as simple as just unclipping those two things to be able to get it down. So one of the most annoying things with brick clips is if something goes wrong and you have to actually take the clip off the wall, it's then quite annoying to then try and re-piece it back onto the wall when you're putting stuff up. So this way, we don't have to re-piece it back into the brick. You find a good spot and then you just cable tie down off that. These are starting to come down a little bit. I'll have to jump up and just stick them back on. But you can see here, we've also got channel clips. So normally, just have these little 3D printed tags that would just stick onto the back of the channel magnet, and then it just allows you to, as you can see there, keep it actually in the one spot on the side of the house rather than letting it hang down, which would have, if it was hanging down without that elevation, it may have actually pulled the strip up even more. So that's why we've moved to having these channel magnets on the side, because it just helps to support things, to stop, realistically stop what you can see happening, but stop it, taking out an entire run rather than just this little bit here. All right, our singing faces. So the singing faces are a linear actuator that basically moves an arm up and down. So if you've seen videos of our show, you'll see our singing faces. This just allows us to get them out of the way while we've got a sequence running, but then also put them up into the sequences that have singing. And if we have a look down here, it's in the previous videos you would have seen they're made out of wood. Obviously, wood's not a very good idea long term, which is why you can see some of these have started to crack, etc. They really need to be replaced with a better material. But the bottom now, all flat bar, the hinges have been bolted through just by drilling through and then just using bolts, obviously. and that just stops the left and right sway when they come up. So what I found before, we were drilling through the top with self-tapping screws. The self-tapping screws weren't quite big enough, so when these were coming up, so you can see there's a little bit of wobble now, but when the self-tapping screws were there, especially as the hinges were, this would actually rock left and right in a really bad way over time. So now we've moved to doing it this way. Hopefully next year we'll also move to making it probably a full steel or aluminium system, just to give it that longevity as well. We've also moved to, you can see now, we've actually bolted through the singing faces that then goes through a piece of marine ply. So that just means that rather than having to cable tie, like you can see the previous way we used to do it was cable tie around those PVC T pieces. Now we can just bolt through. If we need to take it off, it's just unbolt 2 bolts, then unplug it down here, and then we can go and fix up whatever we need to fix up. They plug into this controller. So what we have in here is, again, a power supply, Hanson Electronics Hexfuse, and a Hanson Electronics DC dimmer. So, and then a bunch of relays on the side. So the DC dimmer, basically what it does is acts as a switch for red, green, and blue. So you send it full red, it'll do a dry contact switch on whatever signal you've sent the red to, or the green to, or the blue to. So basically it just lets you, the original idea of them was to basically let you control dumb lights. But obviously for doing things like this, you can also use them to do that. The reason why we've got the relays in there is, you can see we've got the positive and negative coming out the bottom of them. In a default scenario, basically they're in an off position, which is where they are now. When we send them red, that turns the power on, it'll then extend the arm. But the other reason it's good is with the way the relays are set up, if I need to mow the lawn or something, I just switch these 2 cables around. That will then raise these off the ground, and I can sort of get in behind them, or also just take them off if I need to take them off, and that sort of thing as well. So that's why it's designed like that. All right, moving on to the garage matrices. So the garage matrices are literally the same process as what we did for those. So I get up closely, you'll be able to see the bar in behind there. That's the top bar of the temporary fence, and you can see we've still got the same thing up here. So just a wire that runs through the whole top of it through to the other side. To actually keep it all in place. And then these ones I've just, again, cable tied around the top, also cable tied in some spots along the side, just to give it a little bit of support, just because there's obviously a lot of weight. There's 1,920 pixels in each one of these. That just makes it a little bit easier to again, store it, move it. They actually fit in here quite nicely. Now, to actually mount them a little bit higher than what they were last year, I've just got these little, I think they're like a plumber's base that have actually, you can normally bolt into like a threaded rod that bolts into the bottom of these, and then we've just used some 20mm PVC pipe to actually give us that little bit of height extension on the back there. So that just allows us to raise it up or down without having to do anything special. Now, obviously, bolting into concrete is not something that everyone would like to do. This concrete, unfortunately, on the house has been a bit damaged, so we'll eventually get it replaced. Hence why I wasn't so concerned with actually bolting into it. Just made it a lot easier as well to be able to just chuck it on rather than building anything that was sort of just, reliant on actually having bits of wood or something to keep it stacked up. In behind, might be a little bit hard to see. I've actually got, maybe you can see it in a second. That's the rope. Hold on, from this side. Might have to do it again from the back. But basically what we've got is a bit of chain that then chains up to an eyelet that's on the actual garage door. So in wind, or if the weight, if this shifts or anything, that chain will stop it from moving forward and falling down. So even though it's got a bar that sort of goes up a fair way into it, obviously it's only 2 points where that bar is actually going in. The chain that's on the back there will actually stop it from falling forward, because obviously that's not something that we'd really like. You don't want someone to get damaged by your Christmas light display. All right, moving around to the front now. Not much has changed here. So the 180 trees, all we do for those is on the back, it's just basically a tomato stake and just cable tied around the back of them. The little mini trees, what we do is, you can see here, it's just a cable tie that goes around a tent peg and then another cable tie that goes through the tree. This allows you to just sort of do the tent peg through the cable tie itself, so you can sort of have it off the side of the tree rather than having to sort of hammer it right next to the tree. Just makes it a little bit easier. The arches you would have seen in the previous video, if you look on the back of them, there's no support or anything. Basically what they are is, you can probably see it in the bottom of this one. If I move some of the leaves out of the way, they're a bit of rebar that's stuck inside the PVC pipe. We then measure out the half circle, so basically the diameter of what the circle would be if it was from left to right, and then we do the other pin on the other side. And then what happens is, obviously if you do your maths right, you can then just plug the PVC on both sides and you'll get close to a pretty consistent arch doing that in a very simple way. These aren't the best, to be honest. They could be a little bit straighter. It's just because the PVC pipe that we have is not the exact length from when we did it years ago, but it does the job. Megatree just has a standard topper. It's 180 degrees. The bottom is a rim lock off a dump truck. So the guys from G Family Light Show were kind enough to give that to us years ago to be able to build this. Now the bottom, a little bit different. What we used to do is cable tie it all the time, but now that we've got these, I'm not even sure what you'd call them, but basically the way that they work is, hopefully I can get my fingers around it, is you've just got this stretchy elastic, which would then pop over that ball and then hold it into place. So obviously can't do it one-handed, but that's the idea of it, is this elastic then goes over the ball and then holds it into the spot that it needs to be. Around the back, still have the same, so 600 watt power supply in that box, Hanson Power 8 again. These ones though, we do use the actual null buffer to actually get that data repetition when we go into this side. And the reason for that is the data run for this goes from here all the way down to the gate, across from the gate, back up inside the house, and then into the controller there. So having the cable run of that length, then obviously going up and down, it's 80 pixels per string on these, will actually help repeat the data. It's been pretty consistent so far, other than a few pixel failures that you can see with the little scotch locks and things on them. Now, the other thing that we've changed in the previous video, you would have seen, we've always done this. So a ratchet strap that goes up and over, and then so when it's actually loosened up a bit, you just strap it down a bit more. That will then keep that in place up to that peg that's on the top that helps it do the extension and the retraction. And then we've also got another eyelet bolt on the top that you can see down onto the rigging wire, down onto a D-shackle and another turnbuckle. So again, that just allows you to tension it from the back so that when we have wind, like you can see it's kind of getting a little bit windy at the moment, we can actually tension the back side of it so it doesn't fall over frontwards. The bottom part of it here, where the ratchet strap is, stops it falling from left to right. We've had some pretty decent winds and it's held up okay. But the good thing with this tree as well is all we've got to do is loosen this bolt here. The telescopic rod will then fall down, and then so it won't be as high in terms of falling down or anything. It's much less likely to happen. All right, PPD Geowreath. They look great, but they're like a massive wind sail. So I'll show you what we did with this. So basically I went to our local Kmart. If you're in America, I mean, you've got Kmart as well, but Kmart here is probably similar to, I guess, a Target. They've got just a bunch of kids' toys and things like that. This is just a basketball hoop. So the basketball hoop goes up. It's got 3 sections. The top section where you'd normally have the actual backboard for the basketball hoop, I've just bolted a bit of plywood through. Obviously the plywood is not going to last multiple seasons, but if I replace it with a different type of bar or even marine ply, probably get a little bit more out of it. You can see up the top. Same thing as what we did on the Megatree. We've got a turnbuckle onto the wire that then comes down, and I've put it around the back of a concrete block. This again, when we have southerly winds that then hit this, when it actually does, you can see now when I'm tapping it, allows a fair bit of movement before it'll actually then be pushed over. So it's not perfect. It can still, in a big wind, it'll actually push that over or move the concrete around. But it just means that it's a little bit safer than just sort of like leaving it suspended without anything being connected to it all. So yeah, that's what we've done for this year. Last year we had like a T-piece style thing set up for it, and it was good, but what we found is it rocked back and forth on the top of the aluminium gate, which obviously wasn't ideal on the 31 days that we had the show running. Over time it can damage the top of the gate. So this unless the wind pushes it forward. You'll be able to see at the front here, it's actually got a gap between the gate and where this is actually, like it's not actually mounted directly to the gate at all. It sits separate entirely. And then for pack down as well, it means that all we do, or even if it's rather windy, all we do, take out the pin at the base here, lift this off, obviously lift up the concrete that's down there so that the wire's not tight, and then we can take that sleeve out and then go and store that out of the way. So if we're not here for the day or whatever and we know it's going to be quite windy, we can take that out and make it a lot easier for, you know, peace of mind to know it's not up there. Now, for the stars that are on the house, they basically just have a masonry bit that's in the wall, so you can just screw. I'll show you shortly. You can probably see at the top there, there's a screw in the middle. That just screws directly into where we drilled the hole, into one of those lugs, and that will keep it on the wall there fine. The Snowflakes, they basically just have 2 nails holding them up. So a little bit of hopes and dreams holding those ones up there, but they've stayed like that every season we've had them up, which has been good. So I'm not too concerned about them because it's kind of hard for those to get wind behind them. Unlike when you've got these Stockings, for example, it's just a big bit of core flute, so you can get a bit of wind behind it. But for these ones, we've done that same thing that I was talking about. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it here. So I've actually done the masonry bits into those plastic lugs and then cable ties down onto the actual stocking. So, you know, it's even if it does get windy, it's either got to break a cable tie or it's got to pull those screws out of those masonry lugs, which is quite difficult to do before it'll actually pull anything off the house. Again, identical on the same, so it's symmetrical basically here, so it's the same thing. So star, snowflake, then we've got the stocking, snowflake, and then star again. So yeah, that's all we've got on this side. Moving along, now we're on the place that everyone hates to be, the roof. So thought I'd show this because I always see people asking about how do you mount things on the roof, in particular a tiled roof. So for us, the way that we've done it is, you can actually see down there, actually there's one down here, it's probably a bit easy to see. These things are called solar tile hooks. They actually go under the tile and then bolt into the actual, the roof underneath. So the roof frame, and then you've obviously got then a solid mount point that you can actually hook onto. What I've done with this, obviously it's not the best. You can see it rocks back and forth, but for what we're doing here, it's not too bad. I think next year what we'd probably do would be put some points on the wreath itself. These cables that are running to the bottom of the wood there, we could then run them up to basically a point on the back of here somewhere. That would then stop it from going forwards and falling forwards towards the ground. And then probably do the same from these solar tile hooks that are on the left and the right. That'll then give it stability to sort of stop it rocking backwards as well. So the reason why I've done it at the moment with the bits of wood behind it is, at the moment we've got a bit of a southerly wind, so it's pushing forward. Obviously these cables then stop the ability for it to move fully forward. They'll provide some tension and then stop it. Obviously it's not 100% ideal, but that's the idea. We'll stop it sort of pushing forward enough to actually fall off the roof, and then we've then bolted through the sides of the other tile hooks to give it another point of stability. So ideally we would replace it with the wires, because obviously all of this wood up here is not great. Over the course of a month it does get damaged. It's always a concern, but I think if we could actually replace it to just be supported by wires somehow, I think would be a much better way. Just as you can see, it's like a massive sail when it's up here. So yeah, that's the way that we've done that. But yeah, as you can see, the solar tile hooks are quite a good idea because they're super solid, really easy to actually bolt things onto. So that's how we did the Geowreath on the top of the peak of the roof. Moving along now, so on the front of this tree, moving down slowly, you can actually see we've got another solar tile hook. We've just bolted through a piece of wood onto the back, and then on the back of that, we've then got the PVC. It's just a little frame. It's not super complex. That then goes down through 2 bits of wood at the back. So it's a very simple design. That then is where the tree can get cable tied onto the bit of wood as well. And then just for safety, I normally do this as well, where I just do a hole through the PVC and then cable tie through the bottom of it. So that just prevents, if there is, this one's not too bad because it's pretty sheltered where it is on the roof, but it just means that if there is a wind that picks up, it's windy anyway, but if I do this, so you can see if there was a wind to pick up, the PVC is not going to pull out. It's actually going to pull the wood off the bottom as well to then pull it off the house. While I'm up here, I can show you a bit closer. Here's the LED clips that I was talking about. So it's on the roof peak of the house. And you can see they're still actually quite malleable, like they haven't actually gone brittle or anything like that. And then if we move around here, the other singing tree that we've got on the top of the roof, I normally do this just for safety, tie the ropes down that side, down to the edge of the gutters. Obviously, again, still not super ideal. If you get really heavy winds where you are, that will still rip the gutters off your house. But this is then tied all the way up, all the way back down through this frame. So this one is just a rectangular frame, but then the same principle with the way that the PVC pipe's set up and the cable tying around it. Just makes it easier. If you need to get anything off, you just come and cut the cable ties, take it off the roof, go and fix it and bring it back up, and then cable tie it back on. And then so you can see as well, we've also got the rope onto this side. So all this does, it just means, so you can't really tell, or you can tell if I show you the trees. It is a windy day. As you can see, there is a bit of wind and movement here. But even if it does get windier, what will happen is that'll just shift around, but the ropes will still keep it in place. So yeah, that's what we've done for the roof stuff. That's all that's up here. Time to go and get back down. Just thought I'd film this so you can get an idea of the wind, so you can see the Geowreath. It's always concerning with the amount of rock that it's got in it, so it's something we'll definitely try and fix up for next year. The tree, though, as you can see, it's probably sheltered a bit because of where it sits. Does move a little bit, but it's never been concerning. Like the bit of wood that it's cable tied to around the bottom, that's, you know, bolted through into those solar tile hooks, which are then bolted into the house. So more than likely, if we did get a big wind, it's probably going to snap the tree off before it's going to snap that out of the roof. So yeah, that's the way that we've done the things on the roof. Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of the video. I'll chuck some things in the descriptions below just for some links out to some of the things that have been shown in the video. If the video was helpful, can you please give it a thumbs up, a like, and also subscribe? That'd be great. Cheers. Thanks.